Part 35. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 342. What on earth happened? No. Feeling that their spirit bodies seemed to be on the verge of breaking, the three sex demons were terrified and tried their best to resist. But no matter how they struggled, they could not resist the rapid expansion of their bodies. Boom. Despair filled the air, and finally, in the midst of fear, accompanied by a loud explosion, the three bodies exploded and were blown into pieces. The three sex demons who were rampant here did not resist at all and died in an instant. What on earth happened? Looking at the sky in the distance, the female ghosts who had just tried to stop Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu from entering the Holy See were all stunned. They clearly saw that the three huge and terrifying bodies exploded, and they were directly shaken into pieces in the strong aftermath. Dead. Those three sex demons are actually dead. The female ghosts were all dumbfounded. Because they all knew very well how powerful the three sex demons were. Since they occupied the Holy See, no ghosts have been able to enter the Holy See to bathe. There were even quite a few ghosts who were once cultivators and had very good strength, and they united to try to eradicate them. But in the end, without exception, there was no way out. According to the ghosts who knew the realm of cultivation, the strength of the three sex demons was at the level of the high realm, just below the strength of the emperor. To be able to kill them so easily, those two people just now. The female ghosts looked at each other, all of them felt a shock in their hearts. Recalling that when Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu entered here, even if they heard the news about the sex demon, they showed their love calmly, like a fairy couple who were enviable. They all seemed to have set off a storm in their hearts, and they no longer dared to guess how strong the Taoist couple who loved so much that people were jealous were. Saving the Holy See is undoubtedly a great favor to the countless ghosts in the underworld. Ding, congratulations to the host for successfully destroying the three sex demons entrenched here. The system will fulfill its promise. System rewards: a set of sexy bikinis, a bottle of moisturizing sunscreen, a fully inflated beach volleyball, as well as a parasol and a sun lounger. One thing after another fell into Nai Chen's spiritual consciousness. Looking at these long-lost things, Nai Chen suddenly felt that getting this reward was even more exciting than directly rewarding a heavenly magic weapon. After all, this bikini is for the Empress. Nai Chen turned and looked at Chu Qingyu, and couldn't help comparing her size with the bikini that landed in his spiritual consciousness. Soon, the answer came out. Perfect. Although the Empress is beautiful no matter what she wears, even if she wears coarse linen clothes, it will only reflect a more unique beauty. But if she wears this bikini, it will be far beyond imagination. After all, it is cute, sexy, arrogant, and cold at the same time. In addition to the Empress Qingyu, who else in the world can do it? You, why do you look so strange? Noticing Nai Chen's subtle gaze, Chu Qingyu suddenly felt something was wrong. For some reason, she could actually feel a kind of sexual feeling in this gaze. Ahem, nothing. I just want to remind you, isn't the purpose of our trip to bathe in the Holy See? Oh, yes, before going to the Netherworld Dynasty, you need to bathe in the Holy See first to expel the evil spirits on your body. Chu Qingyu nodded seriously, realizing that she had been attracted by the hatred of the three sex demons just now, and she almost forgot the most important thing. Then let's take a bath first. Chu Qingyu turned around and planned to walk towards the Holy See. Wait. But suddenly, she reacted. In the past, she was alone when bathing. But now Nai Chen is right next to her. More importantly, there is a golden and empty beach near the coast, and there is no cover at all. The skirt was completely wet after just a little sea water. If it was immersed in the sea, the clothes would be completely soaked by the sea water. If I bathe in the sea, wouldn't I be completely seen through? You, so this is what you are thinking. Chu Qingyu realized the seriousness of the problem after she realized it. No wonder Nai Chen had strongly supported bathing in the Holy See before, and no wonder Nai Chen's eyes suddenly became weird just now. It turns out that he had thought of this problem a long time ago. In an instant, Chu Qingyu's cheeks were completely blushing. After all, taking a bath together, as a female emperor, how could I do such a shameful thing? He, my wife, do I look like the kind of person you think? Don't worry, I certainly have other ways. After all, the clothes and belly bands in Lanchuan continent do not have modern technology. Once they are soaked, they are almost completely transparent, almost like not wearing anything. So Nai Chen can understand Chu Qingyu's reaction very well. But the cute appearance of the female emperor, who was so ashamed and angry that she tried her best to resist, made Nai Chen's heart throb. After all, who else in Lanchuan continent can see such a lovely female emperor? Actually, my dear, as long as you put on these two, you don't have to worry about the sea water soaking your clothes. After hesitating for a moment, Nai Chen finally made up his mind and slowly took out the bikini underwear and panties in his hands. Don't worry about getting wet. Chu Qingyu looked at the two thin and small pieces of cloth floating in Nai Chen's hand and couldn't help but feel curious. Although this piece of lavender cloth does look pretty, she has never seen such a thing before. What is it used for? After thinking for a long time, Chu Qingyu was still puzzled. Nai Chen coughed awkwardly. As long as these two pieces of cloth are waterproof, as long as they are worn on the body, there is no need to worry about being seen. As he said, Nai Chen used his spiritual energy to conjure up sea water and poured it on the two pieces of cloth. Sure enough, even under the scouring of sea water, the two pieces of cloth were not soaked at all. It's really amazing. This emperor has never seen such a strange cloth. Chu Qingyu couldn't help showing a hint of interest, but still asked with some curiosity. But where are these two pieces of cloth worn? This. Finally asked this embarrassing question, Nai Chen was silent for a long time, and finally chose another way. He pointed his finger up and down. He controlled the ropes at the top and bottom to tie them up as a demonstration. You mean, the rope of the cloth is used to fix it, and the small and thin cloth on the top is tied here. The triangle below, there is only one rope to secure the cloth tied there. As she looked at it, Chu Qingyu's cheeks instantly flushed. How can it be called clothes with only these two pieces of cloth? Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 343. As expected of my wife, you are too smart. After all, there is still a big gap between the appearance of bikinis and Lanchuan continental underwear. It can be seen at once through the demonstration that the Empress is indeed as smart as ice and snow. Nai Chen gave a thumbs up in approval. So, wife, you? No, absolutely not. However, Chu Qingyu, who understood the specific meaning, was even more ashamed and angry. Even if all the ghosts near the Holy See have been driven away far away, only himself and Nai Chen are left on the entire coast. But this kind of thin and sparse fabric is almost the same as not wearing anything at all. There's no one else here. Besides, my wife, you never wear clothes when you sleep. Nai Chen couldn't help but be amused by Chu Qingyu's shyness. Hearing these words, Chu Qingyu's cheeks became even more blushing. Indeed, only Nai Chen knew about his habit of sleeping naked. But the nature is different. When I sleep, I am alone in the dormitory. Not to mention my clothes, I feel a little uncomfortable even if I am covered with a quilt. Sleeping naked was a little weird habit of hers that she didn't dare to tell anyone. Chu Qingyu often felt ashamed because of it. But wearing a piece of clothing called a bikini with only two pieces of fabric is obviously even more excessive. In broad daylight, even if you are the only one next to me, I cannot wear such clothes. Chu Qing's moon surface is like a peach blossom, fighting hard. But because Nai Chen mentioned the issue of sleeping naked just now, she began to feel a little shaken in her heart. But it's not too late, my wife, the situation inside the imperial mausoleum is not good now, and those monks who entered Lanchuan continent may have withdrawn. When those powerful emperors begin to concentrate their efforts to break through the seal, I am afraid that within half a month, the barrier of the emperor's mausoleum will be broken. By then, Lanchuan continent will be completely in danger. We must quickly bathe in the Holy Sea and go to the Netherworld dynasty to prevent this from happening. Nai Chen's expression gradually turned serious, and he persuaded rather seriously. At this moment, Chu Qingyu was obviously hesitant. After all, there is only Nai Chen now, and the situation is urgent. But Chu Qingyu pursed her lips slightly, obviously entangled. Don't worry, wife, no one else will see you. After seizing the time and bathing in the Holy Sea, we can go to the Netherworld dynasty. Sensing that there seemed to be an opportunity, Nai Chen smiled slightly and raised his hand. Suddenly, a powerful light rose up, almost isolating the entire edge of the beach. All the ghosts here have been driven away, and they haven't been approached for a full year. With this barrier, it is impossible for anyone to see the scene inside. The sea surges and laps at the golden sandy beach. The cool sea water surged in, covering Chu Qingyu's slender feet as white and tender as milk. This feeling of coolness and comfort really hit her heart again and again, making her want to soak in the sea water. When you enter the sea, your clothes will be completely soaked sooner or later, making you look like nothing. On the contrary, Nai Chen's bikini with a very weird shape and structure seems to have excellent effects. The cool sea breeze swept through Chu Qingyu's heart again and again, making her heart throb. Finally, Chu Qingyu bit her lips with her silver teeth and made a firm decision. Okay, then I'll give it a try. But you must ensure that you are not lying. Chu Qingyu's voice trembled slightly due to the embarrassment that was completely unacceptable in her heart. Don't worry, of course it's impossible. Nai Chen couldn't help but be overjoyed when he finally got a reply. Only. How on earth are you going to wear these two things? Holding the bikini, Chu Qingyu didn't understand the strange structure at all. Honey, do you need me to help you get dressed? Nai Chen came behind Chu Qingyu. It is true that I don't know how to wear it, but if you help me put it on, wouldn't I have to take off my clothes? No, it can't be done. Don't worry, wife, no one else will see it. Can. Without further delay, what if I don't help you put it on and you accidentally knock off the snowdrops on your head and return to your childhood form? Chu Qingyu. This time, she was obviously hesitant. After all, if you accidentally drop the snowdrop and turn it into the shape it was when you were a child, it will be too late to regret it. Besides. All right. After much hesitation, Chu Qingyu finally made up her mind again. But you must not peek in front of me. Nai Chen smiled helplessly, don't worry, wife. Besides, it's not like I haven't seen it before. Don't peek. No way. A series of warnings came, which proved that although Chu Qingyu understood girls instantly, she was extremely shy. In fact, even those beautiful autumn eyes were shining brightly. Even with his back to Nai Chen, he was still too shy to raise his head. Susu. Finally, the light blue gauze dress fell down. Her shoulders are soft, her muscles are strong and her bones are strong, her back is fair and her skin is like gelatin. The snow-white skin is almost breakable and so beautiful that no flaws can be found at all. Not only that, although she turned her back, Nai Chen could still see the proud and beautiful curve. Ahem, I'm here, wife. Yes. Even though she was only wearing 2 pieces of clothes, Chu Qingyu's voice trembled slightly because she felt too ashamed. According to his few memories and personal judgment, Nai Chen picked up the kini in his hand. If I remember correctly, if you want to tie this thing, you should do it like this first, then like that, and finally like this, then. It's a little too tight. Ahem, let me loosen it a little. You accidentally touched it. Sorry, but, it feels really. You. Strange, why do I feel a little loose again? I'm a little afraid that they will fall off. How about, adjust it again? Then let me tighten it a little more. Just a little tighter, just a little bit. At this moment, those female ghosts who were curious and came to the coast, but were blocked by the light screen and could not see the scene inside at all, felt ashamed. Looking at each other, they all seemed to feel their heartbeats. So, they are now near the Holy See. Good, so wild. Woo, 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 I don't dare to listen to this sound anymore. The sweet and cold sound of whimpering, I'm afraid that no matter who it is, they will be shocked and moved. And at this moment, finally, accompanied by the last slightly comfortable sigh, Empress Kingu successfully put on the wonderful clothes from another world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 344. The lavender bikini highlights her snow-white, tender skin, and the thin straps go around her jade back and are tied with a beautiful bow. The size selected by the system is just right. It happens to be only 3/4 of the size of the Empress, which makes the slightly proud but very suitable curves show a perfect arc. Her slender body is as crystal clear as condensed fat, especially the half-exposed white skin, which makes people's blood boil. The Empress in the bikini is even more beautiful and sexy than Nai Chen imagined. For a moment, Nai Chen's eyes were completely attracted and he didn't know where to look. After all, no matter where she was, there was no flaw at all, and she was beautiful enough to make people's hearts throb. You, don't stare at me so straight. Noticing Nai Chen's gaze, Chu Qingyu's cheeks were completely stained with shame. Her hands seemed to be in front of her chest, trying to cover her snow-white skin. But she soon discovered that the two pieces of cloth were ridiculously small, and no matter how hard she tried to cover it, it couldn't cover it at all. Most importantly, the thin cloth and the thin ribbon made her figure even more prominent. The invisible charm was simply, even more than being naked. Chu Qingyu suddenly felt that she had been deceived. Woo woo woo. A great emperor actually squatted down pitifully, with his arms wrapped around his chest in shame, hoping to cover his body as much as possible. Get up, wife, it will be fine when we get to the sea. Nai Chen was also moved by Chu Qingyu's innocent and pitiful feeling, so he walked forward and stretched out his hand. Really? Chu Qingyu raised her head half-believingly, and there seemed to be a little tear flashing in her clear eyes. Since arriving in the underworld, there were no monks around who knew her, and her cold imperial power had faded a little. At this moment, she even inadvertently revealed a bit of pity. Looking at the surging sea water, Chu Qingyu finally reacted. The purpose of coming here was to bathe in the Holy See. Slowly standing up, she still felt a little ashamed, and felt a chill all over her body with every step, as if she was extremely unsafe. Holding Nai Chen's hand, she was nervous and couldn't help but hold it gently. Her jade feet stepped on the beach. Although every step was a little difficult, Chu Qingyu finally arrived at the coast. With a plop, Chu Qingyu quickly sank into the Holy Sea with golden light floating. Her delicate body was almost completely submerged in the sea water, leaving only her shoulders above the sea surface. Woo 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 woo. Staring at Nai Chen, Chu Qingyu pouted slightly with resentment, leaving a string of bubbles on the water surface. The cool sea water finally calmed her down. Looking back, it seemed that she was a little embarrassed just now. Humph, it's all because the style of your dress is too weird. Otherwise, I would never do that. Chu Qingyu snorted proudly, as if she had completely forgotten that she was shyly protecting her body just now. Wife, are you sure? But the situation just now seems to be completely different from what you said. Nai Chen smiled and asked a soul-searching question. He was already used to the arrogance of the empress. However, he was already quite satisfied with the feast for his eyes and the unprecedented scenery he had seen. More importantly, in addition to the bikini, there are also beach volleyballs and sunscreens rewarded by the system. First, let's not discuss this first, let's bathe in the holy sea first and get rid of the evil spirit. In order to hide the shyness that was difficult to hide, Chu Qingyu had to change the subject. Well, then let's absorb it for a while. Nai Chen also nodded. Humph. Chu Qingyu tried to snort coldly. Then she slowly closed her eyes and felt the surroundings. As expected, the holy sea in the underworld does have unexpected miraculous effects. The cool sea water not only soaked the body, but also calmed her chaotic thoughts. The sea water with golden light even contained a magnificent spiritual power and extremely sacred power. When she entered the underworld, the demonic energy that had been contaminated on her body for a long time was completely melted and decomposed in an instant. Not only that, the spiritual energy in the sea water covered her body with a layer of golden light. And it kept gathering into her body. Although the golden light had a burning pain, it kept purifying her body. After coming to the underworld, although she recovered her body, Chu Qingyu still felt that a small part of her strength was restricted and could not be exerted. But the light from the holy sea that entered her body continuously cleared the dark energy that had merged into her body, restoring Chu Qingyu's strength bit by bit. However, the burning sensation from the flames was indeed somewhat tormenting. Even Chu Qingyu frowned slightly, feeling a little pain. Soon, the process was halfway through, and Chu Qingyu slowly opened her eyes and looked at Nai Chen. But she soon discovered that the light emerging from Nai Chen was even brighter than the light from the holy sea. More importantly, in addition to the large amount of dark energy in her body, Chu Qingyu's insight ability had also recovered a lot. She soon discovered that even she was deeply affected, but Nai Chen's body was extremely pure, as if there was no impurity. Even as a great emperor, she was affected, but Nai Chen was completely unaffected by any evil spirit. This situation really made people feel a little unbelievable. Wife, isn't the dark energy in your body only half eliminated? Nai Chen also noticed Chu Qingyu's gaze. Due to the Xiangu saint body's restraint on the source of evil spirits, he naturally did not need the holy sea and could easily dissolve the dark energy. Well, I want to take a break first. Chu Qingyu looked at Nai Chen and quickly sank, even her shoulders were submerged in the water. In that case, it's a good time for a half-time break. How about we play a game? Nai Chen smiled slightly. This moment was exactly what he expected. Game. Chu Qingyu couldn't help but show a trace of curiosity and slowly floated up. That's it? As he said that, a beach volleyball appeared in Nai Chen's hand. With a light tap, the beach volleyball bounced up elastically. It drew an arc quite flexibly and hit Chu Qingyu's head gently. But with the help of the rebound force, it quickly bounced back into Nai Chen's hands. It doesn't seem to hurt. Strange, is this thing a toy? How do you play it? Chu Qingyu touched the top of his head and looked at the beach volleyball with a hint of curiosity. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 345. This emperor is slightly interested, but the problem is. Chu Qingyu sank into the water and blew out a string of bubbles with some resentment. After all, if you go out, you will be exposed again. Nai Chen couldn't help but smile and said coaxingly. Don't worry, honey, I just want to play volleyball. Besides, I've just seen everything I should see. You. Chu Qingyu instantly felt ashamed and sank a little deeper. But, he stared at Nai Chen faintly. I have to admit that what I said just now does make some sense. More importantly, the current absorption level of the Holy See has almost reached its limit. If you want to continue absorbing it, you may have to wait for a while. And before that, that strange pinball really attracted Chu Qingyu's attention. What is this thing called? After enduring for a moment, Chu Qingyu finally couldn't help but ask. Beach volleyball, as the name suggests, is volleyball suitable for playing on the beach. How about it, my wife, do you want to give it a try? As he said that, Nai Chen started playing with the volleyball in his hand. First, it spins rapidly on the fingertips, and then flies into the air. The volleyball has excellent elasticity and bounces dexterously in Nai Chen's hands. Even Chu Qingyu's eyes were deeply attracted. She has seen countless treasures from heaven and earth, and rare spiritual weapons. Even heaven-level magic weapons are not uncommon. But this was the first time Chu Qingyu had seen such a strange and interesting thing. She couldn't help but follow the volleyball, wanting to take a picture of something that was made of extremely strange material and had never been seen before. After hesitating for a while, Chu Qingyu lightly pursed her lips, and finally nodded. Well, since the bathing of the remaining half of the Holy See will have to wait for a while, I will just try to play this thing called beach volleyball, hum. The last hum perfectly embodies the most vivid arrogance. Woohoo, great. Nai Chen couldn't help but sigh, a little surprised. It seems that the system's beach volleyball rewards are finally coming in handy. Holding the volleyball in his hand, Nai Chen walked onto the shore. Immediately afterwards, Chu Qingyu, who slowly emerged from the sea, looked far more shy than before. Even if she folds her arms in front of her chest, trying to cover her delicate body. But the vast expanse of snow-white skin couldn't cover it up at all. More importantly, the lilac bikini not only highlights the white skin, but also the slim figure. After soaking in the sea water for a while, the bow, which was not too tight, became slightly looser. The two proud white spots on the chest accentuate the perfect and graceful curves. More importantly, it is different from before entering the Holy See. Chu Qingyu, who had just bathed in the sea water, now had 3,000 strands of hair soaked in wetness. She was white and tender, and her lotus-like skin was dripping with crystal water. Especially along the neck, the few drops of water sliding into the ravine bring out a sense of slenderness and enchantment in the coldness. Damn it, why would someone invent such revealing clothes? Chu Qingyu was ashamed and angry, but she could only try to divert her attention to volleyball to distract herself from her shame. Looking at the flawless and even slightly charming body, Nai Chen was stunned for a moment, and it took him a long time to react. Ahem, then I will teach my wife how to play this volleyball. Nai Chen coughed awkwardly, but his gaze was still slightly uncontrollably attracted. After all, the Empress' already graceful figure is set off by the bikini, and is stained with some crystal water drops. Who can withstand this scene? I am an honorable man, I am an honorable man. Well, except facing the Empress. If it weren't for the forceful suppression with spiritual energy, Nai Chen would even feel that his nose would shed a bunch of nosebleeds sooner or later. After taking a few long breaths and barely calming down, he finally picked up the volleyball. According to his vague memory, Nai Chen used a spiritual energy to form a propped-up net, and explained in detail. There are different ways to play beach volleyball. You can put your arms together and hit it into the sky with your arms. You can also put your hands together and push upward with your palms. Even tapping hard with one hand will do. As long as you can hit the net line, you don't lose. As long as you hit the ground in the opponent's field, you win a point. As he spoke, Nai Chen showed off different techniques for hitting the volleyball. Although he didn't know the specifics, the general rules were pretty clear. The most important thing is. A smile quietly appeared on Nai Chen's lips. After all, his real purpose is far more than just playing volleyball. Oh, This rule does sound quite novel. Listening to Nai-Chen's story and watching his technique of playing beach volleyball, Chu Qingyu's curiosity was aroused. Humph, then I'll just give it a try. She tilted her head arrogantly, but Chu Qingyu could not hide the interest hidden in her expression. Then wife, you have to take over. Nai-Chen, who had been waiting for a long time, no longer hesitated and shot the ball directly. The volleyball flew high into the sky. The force of this blow was not very strong. It was obviously intended to deliver the ball to Chu Qingyu. With Chu Qingyu's understanding ability, she naturally quickly understood the way of playing beach volleyball. Although he is a little unfamiliar, his movements are very fast. He raised his toes, raised his slender arms, and pushed the volleyball back with a gentle push. Not bad, wifey. Nai-Chen smiled slightly and became serious, and executed a smash without hesitation. Bang! Because she was a little unfamiliar, Chu Qingyu was stunned for a moment and missed the best opportunity. The ball hit the ground and Nai-Chen scored first. But losing this round made Chu Qingyu even more interested. The shy feeling just now dissipated a lot in an instant, and Chu Qingyu's eyes revealed the desire to win. After all, she has almost never lost to others in any aspect. Come on, I don't believe that a mere beach volleyball player can lose to you. Chu Qingyu's fighting spirit was high and the game started again. In just the second round, her proficiency and strength had increased immensely. Coupled with the improvement of her physical fitness as a powerful emperor, she gradually became more proficient, and she was actually able to fight Nai-Chen back and forth. Beach volleyballs flew in the air, and from time to time a smash was carried by strong wind pressure, making a loud noise. But in the end he was stopped and beaten back. Bang, bang. Boom. Boom. If anyone else saw this scene, they might not believe that they were playing beach volleyball. This scene is simply worse than firing a nuclear bomb. There was back and forth, it was obviously only the second game, but the situation was unexpectedly anxious. After dozens of back and forth, the surrounding sand was blown away, but the two still couldn't tell the winner. Only Chu Qingyu suddenly noticed that there seemed to be something wrong with Nai-Chen's eyes. Nai-Chen's eyes were indeed staring at the ball. But this ball doesn't seem to be that ball. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 346. Good shot, my wife has a good shot. Nai-Chen's praises sounded one after another, as if he was praising Chu Qingyu's skills, but his eyes never fell on beach volleyball. But although his strength has not reached the Huating realm, in terms of physical strength alone, Nai-Chen is enough to rival the powerful emperor. In addition, it was Chu Qingyu's first time playing beach volleyball, so she didn't know the rules very well, nor did she know many techniques. In fact, Nai-Chen could have won a long time ago. But he had no intention of doing so. Because compared to beach volleyball, Nai-Chen's eyes were completely focused on the other two balls. The lavender bikini gently gathered up the tender snow peaks, and the bow tied by two purple thin threads experienced tempering and became more and more unstable, as if it might break at any time. What's more, as Chu Qingyu runs and jumps left and right, up and down in order to hit the volleyball. The white snow swayed slightly with the movement, especially under the lavender bikini. The turbulent feeling made people feel the blood spurting. No, 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 no one really plays beach volleyball just to watch volleyball. Nai-Chen's eyes were naturally attracted to the ball. Of course, this ball is not that ball. Bang. After knocking the volleyball away again, Chu Qingyu also noticed something strange. Although Nai-Chen was playing volleyball with him, his eyes never fell on the volleyball. But it seems that he has been staring at himself. The most important thing is that she always seems to feel that there is a full sense of lust in her eyes. Strange, exactly. Jumping up on tiptoes, when she landed on the ground again, looking down, Chu Qingyu finally noticed her own turbulent waves. For a moment, she was dumbfounded. He looked at Nai Chen, at the volleyball ball, and then at his own snow-white skin. She suddenly figured it out. Beach volleyball is indeed a bit fun, but what Nai Chen really wants to play is this ball and not that ball. Bang! Angrily, Chu Qingyu knocked the next ball away, and Chu Qingyu immediately wrapped her arms around her chest shyly. As expected, when seeing this scene, Nai Chen was slightly startled and completely ignored the issue of beach volleyball. Crack! Without any obstruction, the volleyball fell directly to the ground. Except for the sound of the surging water, the surroundings seemed completely silent. The atmosphere was a little awkward for a while. You really are not looking at that ball at all. This emperor actually fell into the trap. Chu Qingyu was so ashamed and angry that she completely ignored the beach volleyball matter. She quickly covered her body with a spiritual energy and hurriedly submerged into the holy sea. The little eyes that looked at Nai Chen were also sparkling and pitiful. Not good. Looking at the volleyball lying aside, Nai Chen realized that he had been discovered. But there is no other way, the sight of the empress playing volleyball is too tempting. No matter how firm I am, I can't resist it. In comparison, even the system rewards and volleyball that can resist the powerful emperor are not considered good shots. Nai Chen couldn't help but be amused when he noticed Chu Qingyu's shy eyes that looked like she was about to cry, with her pitiful little eyes soaked in the sea. Misunderstanding, wife, please listen to my explanation. I won't listen. Humph, it's okay not to listen. Nai Chen suddenly jumped out of the holy sea. He picked up a splash of water with both hands and sprinkled it on Chu Qingyu. A handful of water was sprinkled down, sliding down the slender and fair neck, making Chu Qingyu look even more pitiful. Damn it, you still attack me secretly. Being attacked for the purpose of watching one ball and another, Chu Qingyu fought back in embarrassment. He also picked up a handful of water with both hands and sprinkled it on Nai Chen. There was a splash, and half of Nai Chen's hair was wet. Honey, is this all your strength? However, instead of restraining himself, Nai Chen actually laughed even more wildly. Wow! Another basin of water was sprinkled on the body of the great emperor who was so awe-inspiring in the past that no one even dared to approach Lanchuan continent. Damn it, this emperor's strength is not limited to this. Chu Qingyu quickly fought back. Humph, but it's still not enough. I'm not convinced, try this trick again. What about my move? It's so cold, I will never admit defeat. The sea water splashed, and after a while, Nai Chen had already forgotten how much water they splashed on each other. But as she struggled stubbornly, even though Chu Qingyu's smooth hair was covered with crystal water drops, a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth inadvertently. There was a chase and a fight, and the water surged. Chu Qingyu was gradually amused while tumbling in the holy sea, and the joyful atmosphere made her forget about beach volleyball. Wow! A large wave of spray poured on Nai Chen, and Chu Qingyu finally couldn't help but proudly raised her white hair. I have made a good calculation. Now I have beaten me twice more than you. I won. Do you remember this? Nai Chen couldn't help but feel a little curious. After all, he had been fighting the Empress for a long time. Of course, you splashed me 36 times, but I splashed you a full 38 times. Finally winning, Chu Qingyu couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. Nai Chen then recalled that the Empress was very smart and talented except for cooking, and there was really no flaw in other aspects. I admit defeat, my wife, you are really amazing. Nai Chen smiled and raised his hands. Hee, that's about right. Chu Qingyu's slightly happy mouth slightly raised. Humph, I'll barely forgive you for what you did just now. When mentioning this shameful topic, Chu Qingyu's voice suddenly became much smaller. After all, this weird dress is comfortable, but it is really too erotic. But at this moment, she suddenly noticed Nai Chen approaching. She lowered her head slightly, her face was like a peach blossom. In addition to the perfect curves outlined by the purple bikini, and the playful scene of Chu Qingyu playing and splashing water just now, Nai Chen in the water suddenly felt a little uncontrollable. Even the cool sea water couldn't calm her restless heart. "You, what are you doing?" Skin to skin, she was gently held in Nai Chen's arms. Chu Qingyu, realizing that something was wrong, suddenly showed a trace of panic. "Wife, it seems like we haven't had sex for a long time." Nai Chen's voice was already ringing in her ears. "But this is in the sea." Chu Qingyu was completely panicked, but suddenly realized that Nai Chen didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 347. Chu Qingyu never thought that Nai Chen would have a sudden idea in the Holy See. Although the surroundings were blocked by light curtains, there was no one else on the endless sea. But wearing such strange clothes and being in such strange waters makes people feel extremely ashamed no matter how they think about it. With no other excuse, Chu Qingyu had no choice but to explain. "After bathing in the Holy See, we will go to the Netherworld dynasty. You have not reached the realm of the great emperor yet. If you are with me. In short, your body will probably become very weak by then and it will be difficult to walk." He was about to leave for the Netherworld dynasty, so he needed to be fully prepared. In the past, Nai Chen might still have concerns. But now, he has had it in his hands for a long time, and he has not used the Beast King's pill, which he has long refined into the 9-Yang Chaos pill. "Don't worry, wife, you don't have to worry about your husband's health today." With that said, Nai Chen took out the 9-Yang Chaos pill and put it into his mouth without hesitation. "You." Chu Qingyu's eyes changed slightly in an instant, and she obviously didn't expect Nai Chen to be so decisive. She could clearly feel the yang energy in Nai Chen's body rising sharply, and more importantly, the already extremely attractive temperament had actually become a bit more attractive. For a moment, even her eyes stagnated when she looked at Nai Chen. After all, as Nai Chen said, it seems that it has been quite a while. "Hey, you have to calm down. Although you have that pill, but..." Forcibly maintaining the last trace of calmness, Chu Qingyu tried to persuade Nai Chen. Unfortunately, Nai Chen not only didn't listen, but got even closer. The skin is close, conveying each other's warmth. The cool water that was originally surging normally seemed to turn into countless small tentacles at this moment, disturbing people's hearts. He raised his head slightly and stared at Nai Chen with his hazy eyes, a bit resentful. But in his eyes, there was a hint of blurred affection that could not be concealed. "Damn it, that's too much." There was no hint of blame in that faint and somewhat drunken voice. "Haha, my wife, your words are too frank. Do you still want to deceive me again?" Nai Chen couldn't help but smile slightly, feeling that the beating speed in his heart seemed to be accelerating. After all, at this moment, Chu Qingyu had ripples of light in her eyes, and her cheeks were red and hot due to excessive embarrassment. The snow-white skin is soaked in the sea, with a hint of pink, and is outlined by the lavender bikini. In the coldness, there is also a bit of intoxicating charm. In fact, no matter which angle you look at it, it is enough to make anyone's heart flutter and cannot be calmed down at all. How can such beauty exist in the world? Nai Chen finally couldn't bear it any longer, and softly leaned close to Chu Qingyu's shy and lovely cheeks, as well as her weak and boneless body. "It's too much." With a hint of resentment, Chu Qingyu couldn't help pouting angrily. However, there was already a wisp of sweat on the crimson cheek, and it looked shiny and moist under the reflection of the sea waves. Perhaps this emperor is just influenced by those 3 sex demons. When I use my spiritual energy, maybe it can be restored. There was still a hint of stubbornness in the soft voice. But looking at the reddish cheeks, Nai Chen smiled slightly, already understanding the current situation. Nai Chen couldn't help but cough slightly, and a trace of spiritual energy floated out. Not long after, two lavender lights appeared on the surface of the water and were washed towards the shore along with the flow of the sea water. At this moment, no matter how cold the sea water is, it can no longer calm the excessive temperature. Staring at Nai Chen, Chu Qingyu's slightly coquettish voice soon disappeared in the sea breeze. The holy sea is sparkling, and the gray sky seems to reflect a little golden light in the reflection of the sea. Isolated from the huge barrier, the female ghosts obviously didn't know what was going on inside. They just looked at each other in shock and were at a loss. The only thing that can be heard is the gentle chirping of birds in the forest. There are obviously no animals in the underworld, so how can there be sounds like birds singing? No wonder it is called the Holy Sea. It seems that there are indeed countless mysterious and unpredictable things hidden in the Holy Sea that even ghosts can't believe. After a long time, Chu Qingyu looked at the boat that had floated to the distant shore with shame and anger, and let out a long sigh. It was an accident just now going to the Netherworld dynasty is the most important thing. Humph, you actually did such an outrageous thing in the sea. When you return to Lanchuan continent, I will punish you. A gust of cool sea breeze blew by, and Chu Qingyu seemed to regain her previous sense of coolness in an instant. The snow-white and slender jade neck was slightly straightened out, giving off the majesty of a cold and aloof emperor. I seriously doubt that, my wife. You want to perfectly explain what it means to be evil beforehand like a devil and afterwards holy like a Buddha. Nai Chen couldn't help but cough slightly. With the blessing of the 9-yang chaos pill, Nai Chen still had plenty of physical strength even when faced with the mighty emperor. Honey, don't you plan to continue with this view? Nai Chen said softly close to the cute little ears that were as delicate as gold ingots. Of course not. Chu Qingyu answered quickly. And there was a cold and arrogant tone in his voice, as if he refused without hesitation. Nai Chen was a little surprised. The waves continued to drift, and Chu Qingyu was obviously at a loss. Although she was quite stubborn, she couldn't hide her heart. As a great emperor, a short time was naturally very short. However, a strange feeling suddenly emerged in her heart. And it quickly spread in her heart and became more and more majestic. An absurd and shameful, but uncontrollable thought almost instantly filled her inner thoughts. Raising her autumn water eyes, Chu Qingyu's eyes and cheeks were full of shame. How about, continue? The voice was as small as a mosquito, and even trembled slightly because of excessive shame. Chu Qingyu's eyes moved, and she didn't dare to look at Nai Chen at all. How could I say such shameful words? But it seemed too late to regret. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 348. Chu Qingyu's coldness with a hint of reluctance, and her arrogance with a hint of shyness and desire made Nai Chen's heart tremble slightly. After all, the dignified Queen Qingyu refused on the surface, but in fact she was completely unable to control the shyness in her heart. Where else in the world can there be such a beauty? But thinking back to the scene of Chu Qingyu's cold refusal just now, Nai Chen had a hint of teasing. Not only did he not agree, but he resisted coldly. Forget it, my wife, I'm a little exhausted, and I have to go to the Netherworld dynasty next, so let's just leave it at that. Huh. This answer made Chu Qingyu stunned for a moment. Obviously she didn't expect Nai Chen to respond like this. After all, in the past, as long as he took the initiative, no matter how weak he was, Nai Chen would grit his teeth and never let go of the opportunity. Moreover, at this moment, all the clothes have been blown away, even if I want to leave. But, how can you be weak? Didn't you just take the 9-yang chaos pill, an 8th grade pill? Finally, Chu Qingyu lowered her voice, suppressing her shame. In order to seduce Nai Chen, who was quite cold at the moment and seemed to have no interest in anything. She was even a little clumsy, rubbing Nai Chen gently with her snow-white and tender skin, with a little resentment and expectation in her eyes. This action was really a little clumsy and cute. Nai Chen couldn't help but move again, but still turned to the side coldly. "No, I'm still a little exhausted." "You?" Chu Qingyu looked at him with her beautiful eyes. She naturally knew how powerful the 9-yang chaos pill was. After all, that night, it was not enough to describe Nai Chen as a wolf and a tiger, not to mention that it was just one time. But, she had no way to expose him. The waves continued to surge, and every time the waves hit Chu Qingyu's delicate body, she couldn't help but tremble slightly. Chu Qingyu's sense of embarrassment became more and more intense, and the blush on her cheeks became a little deeper. Finally, she could not control the impulse in her heart. She resisted the boundless shyness and gently leaned into Nai Chen's ear. Don't joke." The fragrance of orchids brushed past, and the voice was soft and pleasant to the ears. Hearing the voice that was a little pitiful in the resentment and shyness, Nai Chen finally couldn't help but smile. "In that case, I won't be polite." He pressed against the cold and soft body again. Although the sea is vast, the extremely pleasant and soft sound, like the crisp ringing of a bell, drifted to all directions with the surging waves. Human voices, water sounds, and strange sounds of unknown origin. Woo woo woo. After 3 hours, Chu Qingyu, who finally got back to the shore and was able to put on normal clothes and covered her delicate body tightly with a light blue phoenix skirt, didn't know what words to use to describe her current mood. Although the heat and restlessness just now had almost dissipated. But at this moment, the aftermath of the battle brought a great sense of weakness. Nai Chen was completely fine, but every step she took, she felt shaky and her legs were weak. Staring at Nai Chen, Chu Qingyu felt full of resentment. The culprit of all this was the strange clothing called bikini. But Nai Chen seemed to take it very seriously and put it away seriously, and seemed to plan to let her wear it next time. It was really too shameful. Chu Qingyu silently made up her mind that she would never wear those strange clothes that Nai Chen took out again in the future. Especially when Nai Chen takes the 9-yang chaos pill, you must stay away from him. Nai Chen has not yet reached the great emperor realm, but it is so terrible to take the 9-yang chaos pill. Chu Qingyu can no longer imagine what he will become if he enters the great emperor realm and takes the 9-yang chaos pill. Wouldn't that be? Thinking about it, Chu Qingyu's cheeks suddenly blushed slightly, and she quickly turned around, trying to dispel that terrible idea. Ding, congratulations to the host for successfully making the great emperor's legs weak and ashamed. Obtained system reward, Kai Tai sword. At this moment, the system suddenly made a sound. Kai Tai sword. Nai Chen also carefully checked the details of this sword. In this Kai Tai sword, all the sword arts that he had mastered and penetrated can be condensed into the power of one sword. The more sword arts you master, the deeper the purity of your mastery, and the stronger the power that can be unleashed. Although the strength of this sword depends entirely on itself, its condensation and expansion, and the characteristics of gathering all the power in one sword, make this sword able to burst out extremely terrifying power. The only problem is that it may drain all the spiritual power in the body and even completely lose the combat effectiveness after using it once. Its mechanism can almost be described as hurting the enemy by 1000 and hurting oneself by 200. Compared with the legendary 7-injury fist, it is barely better. However, it is the seemingly useless move that attracted Nai Chen's attention. Because the pursuit of the sword is the ultimate. No matter how much it will cost, no matter what the process is. As long as it can burst out unprecedented power on a sword, this sword can be called the strongest sword. Although this secret method of concentrating all the power on a sword sounds like it hurts the enemy and oneself, it just meets the ultimate of swordsmanship. Nai Chen mastered the Kai-Tai sword very seriously, and then nodded with satisfaction. This time when he came to the Holy See, he not only successfully made the Empress wear a bikini and play beach volleyball, but also ahem. In short, before going to the Netherworld dynasty, Nai Chen did not expect to have such an unexpected harvest. The only problem is that the sunscreen, parasols, and sun loungers were not used. But it doesn't matter, anyway, these things can be used after returning to Lanchuan continent. After solving the things in the underworld, when his strength reaches the realm of the great emperor, it will not be just a matter of 3 hours. What's the situation with your eyes just now? Chu Qingyu, who had just brewed a cold emotion, inadvertently saw Nai Chen's eyes with a hint of smile, and suddenly felt a little scared. Some of her soft and numb jade legs couldn't help but take a step back, with a little vigilance and a little shyness. Like a little rabbit facing a great enemy, trembling with fear, a little want to run away. Ahem, of course it's nothing, I didn't do anything excessive, why are you like this, wife? Nai Chen also smiled awkwardly. How can you say I didn't do anything excessive? Chu Qingyu, a great emperor and the ruler of Tianyuan Palace, had a trace of pity in her eyes. Bikini, beach volleyball, and 3 hours. Each one is more excessive than the other. Humph, anyway, the Beast King pill has been used up, and you haven't reached the waiting realm. When I return to Lanchuan continent, I will definitely bully you back. Chu Qingyu had no choice but to comfort herself like this. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 349. Boom boom. Gasp for air, watching the continuous sound of the Emperor's mausoleum barrier, all the cultivators were shocked and frightened, and they were obviously still a little frightened. Although Nai Chen almost wiped out the skeleton army in an instant with his overwhelming force. But after that, as the skeleton army continued to increase, and the corpse of the Emperor appeared in the canyon, the many cultivators in Lanchuan continent quickly lost their resistance and were completely unable to compete with the strange things in the Emperor's mausoleum. Fortunately, Nai Chen used the extremely powerful thunder method, and the casualties are not too many at present. But, looking at the figures of Emperor Jinming and Emperor Pangyuan, many cultivators showed a moment of shock at the same time. In addition to the two emperors, there were also Empress Qingyu, Saint Fanhua, and Nai Chen and his pet dragon King Aolan who entered the canyon at that time. Why are only Emperor Jinming and Emperor Pangyuan coming out now? The corpses of the emperors that were originally hidden deep in the canyon have also emerged. What happened in the depths of the imperial mausoleum? Where are the empress and others now? How are they safe? They didn't know all these things, but they clearly saw the solemnity in the expressions of Emperor Jinming and Emperor Pangyuan. It's not good. Those emperors' corpses will come out of the canyon. Doesn't it mean that they? Emperor Jinming's expression was obviously a little pale. Although Nai Chen was so angry that his teeth were itching, Empress Qingyu and Saint Fanhua were emperors with respected status in Lanchuan continent. Not only did they make countless people admire and fear them, but they were also his unattainable admiration. Emperor Jinming was obviously unwilling to accept the fact that they might be buried in the depths of the imperial mausoleum. Not only that. Boom, boom. Emperor Jinming frowned. The shaking of the emperor's mausoleum barrier has obviously become more intense, and the originally holy and mysterious golden color has also begun to be dyed red. The barrier that was originally as solid as a rock and contained endless mysterious magic has begun to show signs of instability. At that time, the situation in the depths of the canyon was not good. I and Emperor Pangyuan guarded the rear and returned to the canyon. The Qingyu Queen and others fought their way into the siege and tried to go to the gate surrounded by countless emperors' corpses. It is unknown whether they succeeded in entering. But time passed, and 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 7 days, no one knew what happened in the depths of the canyon. but the increasing number of skeletons and the emperor's corpses that emerged from the canyon one after another made the monks from all sides give up resistance and finally had to withdraw from the emperor's mausoleum. However, although most of the monks escaped unscathed and saved their lives. During these 7 days, the barrier of the emperor's mausoleum suffered a series of blows. Even this mysterious barrier, which was once made by countless great emperors, has begun to show signs of loosening and disintegration. According to estimates, this last barrier will completely collapse within a week. When this barrier is broken, there will be no more barriers between the imperial mausoleum and Lanchuan continent. The corpses of the great emperors who have already been demonized will also be able to enter Lanchuan continent to fight. By then, the whole world will fall into chaos. The lives of the people will be destroyed, and countless sects of cultivators will be destroyed. That day will probably come soon. Empress Nai Chen, what is the situation in the depths of the imperial mausoleum now? Not only Emperor Jinming and Emperor Peng Yuan, at this moment, countless cultivators in Lanchuan continent are staring at the barrier of the imperial mausoleum, feeling infinitely nervous. At the same time, they pray repeatedly in secret. Because they all know very well that although it is a bit out of reach, this last hope can only be placed on Empress Qingyu. If they cannot stop what is happening in the imperial mausoleum, Lanchuan continent may be completely destroyed. But they don't know that at this moment, deep in the imperial mausoleum, there is a man and a dragon who agree with their ideas. Woo woo woo, what is Qingyu doing? And Nai Chen too. Behind the gate, in the dark and dim space, Saint Flower and Aolan hugged each other for warmth. Saint Flower's eyes were blurred with tears, and her body was soft, while Aolan was pitiful, nestling in her soft arms. Although this gate is not accessible to the corpse of the emperor in the imperial mausoleum. As long as you hide in it, you don't have to worry about safety at all. But outside, countless corpses of emperors are wandering, making terrible sounds. In this dark environment, it can still make anyone or dragon tremble. Especially Saint Flower, who is bullied by Empress Qingyu a lot on weekdays and doesn't have the courage of a powerful emperor, even seems to be more afraid than Aolan. What do you think Nai Chen and the Empress are doing now? As if to ease the solemn atmosphere that made Long Sun want to cry, Aolan brought up the topic pitifully. They entered the underworld and must have fought bravely with ghosts. They went through all kinds of hardships and difficulties, and kept fighting, trying to kill the ghost that was wreaking havoc on the imperial mausoleum. The flower saint quickly answered according to what she thought in her mind. Yes, with the Empress's strength, she hasn't come back for so long. She must have encountered an extremely powerful opponent and got into a stalemate. Otherwise, there would be no movement for 7 days. Aolan also nodded in approval. But suddenly, an idea that sounded even absurd and ridiculous emerged in her mind. Saint, you said that it should be impossible for them to find a beautiful beach in the underworld to eat, drink and have fun, show their love freely, go on a honeymoon, or even, do shameful things. How is it possible? The Saint of Flowers hesitated for a moment, but quickly rejected it. Even if the two of them have an outrageous love for posting dog food, it is after all the underworld, full of ghosts and various dangers. Even Qingyu needs to be fully careful and may even fall into a tough battle. So a honeymoon is definitely impossible. That's right, I misunderstood them. The Queen and Nai Chen must still be working hard for the affairs of Lanchuan continent, trying their best to find the ghost and kill it. It is more likely that they have already experienced countless wars. Yeah, it must be like this, I just hope they can be faster. Even listening to the terrible sound outside the door, they hugged each other pitifully. Saint Fanhua and Aolan clearly believed this conjecture very much. Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu must be fighting hard in the underworld on the other side. But they didn't know that at this moment, Nai Chen and Chu Qingyu, who were dressed, had just finished their sweet honeymoon after arriving in the underworld. If they knew the truth, Saint Fanhua and Aolan would probably be so angry that they would cry on the spot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 350. Not good, Princess. The fighting power of these affected ghosts is stronger than we imagined. The Netherworld Dynasty. A panicked report came from the towering and majestic walls built by countless ghost energy. Surrounded by the ghost generals, a beautiful spirit with a blue crown on her head and a face of a 16-year-old girl looked at the scene below. The crown on her head was enough to prove her lofty status in the Netherworld Dynasty. It was also enough for the ghosts to know her identity at a glance, the Netherworld Princess, Yukin. Born in the underworld, grew up in the underworld, gathered thousands of spiritual energy in the underworld to build a spiritual body, and evolved into cultivation. Took over the Netherworld Dynasty and countless ghosts to pass through the road to rebirth. Yukin should have been an extremely noble existence in the underworld, and was enough to make all the ghosts bow their heads and dare not resist. But at this moment, the situation in the underworld became completely different. A month ago, countless polluted souls suddenly appeared. The bodies of these souls were filled with a strong blood color, and they were like zombies. They had no ability to think, and seemed to have only one goal, to capture the Netherworld Dynasty. It was far beyond expectations that these souls, whose consciousness was invaded and whose movements seemed extremely stiff, were actually much stronger than imagined. In just 1 month, a large area of territory under the jurisdiction of the Netherworld Dynasty had been invaded, and countless ghosts were polluted, lost their ability to think, and joined the blood-filled army. Not only that, but there were also white bones and corpses being manipulated by blood and revived in the underworld. And each of them was not weak in combat power, and they didn't care about their own life and death at all. They just moved forward madly and attacked the deepest part of the Netherworld Dynasty. So much so that just 1 month had passed, and these extremely strange beings had actually attacked cities and plundered land, and their numbers had skyrocketed wildly, and they had already reached the belly of the Netherworld Dynasty. If this continued, even though the crown still exuded the majesty of the princess of the underworld, Yu Qian's eyebrows slightly frowned. If I open the eye of the underworld and see through the entire underworld, I may be able to find the culprit who caused all this. But now, these polluted ghost armies are already at the gates of the city, and the situation is extremely critical. Even if they are found, I am afraid that they will not be able to stop the current situation. If those strange things continue to expand like this, I am afraid that the entire Netherworld Dynasty will fall into an unprecedented disaster. Even on the verge of extinction. Who on earth can do this? Yu Qian couldn't help biting her silver teeth and looked down at the city. At this moment, shouts and killings were overwhelming, the wind was howling, and the flames of war were flying. For the princess, we will guard here and never retreat a single step. The millions of ghost soldiers of the Netherworld Dynasty roared loudly, with a determined look. Every step under their feet seemed to be unwavering and they would never retreat a single step. Even if their bodies were dead, they turned into ghosts and served in the Netherworld Dynasty, helping countless ghosts to pass through the world of life. They had already pledged their loyalty and this wisp of soul to the Netherworld Dynasty and the current Netherworld King, Princess Yukin. No matter what, even if their souls were scattered, they were unwilling to retreat. However, although the millions of ghost soldiers were resolute and determined, they were willing to die and survive. Facing the blood-colored ghosts that surged like waves, they were still somewhat unable to resist. The ghost soldiers soon discovered in shock that the strength of these souls was far beyond their imagination. The blood was everywhere, and those hideous souls continued to surge with strange power. What was even more terrifying was that all the ghost soldiers defeated by them would be contaminated. Soon, they would turn from comrades into enemies. Moreover, they began to rush forward regardless of their lives, becoming even more crazy and violent than other souls, and extremely hideous. What happened to them? What exactly affected those weird things? Even the ghost soldiers who had originally regarded death as life showed a look of astonishment. Because they have realized that even if they fight desperately, the situation has begun to take a sharp turn for the worse. If this continues, even if they fill their lives, they will not be able to stop these strange things that can infect the ghost soldiers. The terrifying roars of the evil spirits rise and fall, and the scene of the battlefield has completely changed. The ghost soldiers who were originally stationed in the fortress have been unable to resist and began to retreat step by step. Because their former friends suddenly turned into enemies and had no room to react, it was a heavy blow to them. Seeing that the millions of ghost soldiers who once controlled the entire underworld and guarded here have begun to show signs of retreat. Looking at this scene, Yu Qian's eyes finally became firm. The Netherworld dynasty has been in charge of the souls and souls for thousands of years, and has long become the highest authority in the underworld. It is feared by countless ghosts, and no existence dares to challenge it. She didn't know who caused all this, but she knew one thing very well. If you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. As the ruler of the Netherworld dynasty, I will never allow myself to retreat. Order the rest of the ghost soldiers to retreat. The situation here is no longer under your control. Whether I might die here or not, you just need to leave here first and preserve your strength. The matter of the underworld may have attracted the attention of the outside world. Perhaps, it won't be long before foreign monks arrive here. Maybe with their power, they can quell this riot. Yu Qian glanced at the guards beside her, and her eyes quickly refocused on the battlefield. Princess, what did you say? You are the most important person in the Netherworld dynasty, how can you? The guards were stunned and wanted to step forward to stop her. But Yu Qian seemed to have made up her mind long ago. She jumped lightly and landed under the city wall. The height of the 16 or 17-year-old girl was originally very small among the countless ghost soldiers. But the majesty of the royal family of the underworld was enough to scare all the ghosts. The blue light emanating from the crown even made the ghosts who invaded the Netherworld dynasty pause for a moment. But soon, they roared even crazier. And as if all their attention was focused on Yu Qian's spirit body, they burst out with a stronger force than before. Princess! Under the astonished gaze of countless ghost soldiers, Yu Qian held her sword in front of her and stood alone in front of thousands of ghost soldiers. The crown exuded an extremely pure ghost energy. Yu Qian knew very well that even if she tried her best, she might not be able to save the current situation. Is this, the Netherworld dynasty? In the midst of the fighting on the battlefield, no ghost noticed. In the distance, two figures were slowly approaching. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, MaleProtagonist. Chapter 351. The Netherworld dynasty has become like this. In the distant sky, seeing the millions of ghost armies fighting and killing each other on the earth, even Chu Qingyu couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Wife, do you know about the Netherworld dynasty? After all, the Netherworld dynasty belongs to the power in the underworld, Nai Chen asked with a little curiosity. Well, Sister Ming mentioned it to me before. Chu Qingyu nodded and said. The Netherworld dynasty controls the billions of souls in the underworld and is the most powerful force in the underworld, and it is also an authority that cannot be challenged. Any ghost who comes to the underworld, no matter how powerful he was in his life or what kind of strength he still has after death, has no qualifications to compete with the Netherworld dynasty. The Netherworld dynasty in the underworld has always had supreme authority, and it is impossible for any ghost to try to challenge it. But now, obviously, even Chu Qingyu did not expect that the Netherworld dynasty would actually be attacked. Especially, those blood-filled souls seem to be somewhat similar to the situation in the Emperor's mausoleum. In just a moment, Nai-chan and Chu Qingyu noticed the familiar feeling at the same time. I didn't expect that the existence that was wreaking havoc on the Emperor's mausoleum would also attack the underworld at the same time. The existence that dared to attack the Emperor's mausoleum and the underworld at the same time, and did such a thing, its strength and purpose are really incredible. However, we came to the Netherworld dynasty to find that person. In this way, we just happened to have a clue, right? Nai-chan looked at the fighting army of ghost soldiers, and Chu Qingyu's eyes also looked there at the same time. However, she soon noticed the situation at the moment. Although the million-strong army of the Netherworld dynasty was powerful, no matter its strength or strange magic, it was far from being able to compete with those polluted souls, and it had already fallen into a trend of retreat. Under the dim sky, the sound of killing was everywhere. From time to time, there were wailing and screaming sounds echoing in the air, and some ghost soldiers were instantly scared to death. Swords, spears, swords and halberds were full of murderous intent. There was despair, anger, but also helpless retreat. Those ghost soldiers loyal to the Netherworld dynasty were unwilling to retreat, but the situation was no longer under their control. That is. Chu Qingyu's eyes suddenly stagnated slightly, and then her eyes changed completely. Among those ghost soldiers who were retreating step by step, she actually saw an extremely familiar figure. Sister Ming. Many years ago, Yu Jian was a 16 or 17-year-old girl. At that time, I was still a little girl who was not even as tall as Nai-chan's waist. Now, I have grown up completely, but that figure seems to have never changed. After becoming an emperor for many years, even if I established the Tianyun Palace and was called the female emperor, Chu Qingyu will never forget the past. If it weren't for Yu Jian, I would probably have been depressed long ago. Without growth, there is no way to become a great emperor, and naturally there is no way to meet Nai-chan. Therefore, Yu Jian's position in Chu Qingyu's heart has never changed from beginning to end. As if it was a lifetime ago, this reunion after who knows how many years of separation made Chu Qingyu's eyes seem to bloom with brilliant brilliance. If there were no one else, she would even want to run over and throw herself into the arms that made her feel at ease. But Chu Qingyu's body slowly emerged with a cold chill. At this moment, it was not just the millions of ghost soldiers of the Netherworld dynasty that began to retreat. Falling in the middle of the battlefield, Yu Jian, who was fighting 1 against 100, was also caught in a bitter battle. Although her strength was comparable to that of the great emperor, she was still unable to resist the endless blood-colored army. The degree of weirdness in the underworld was beyond imagination. In this deadlock, even if there was an additional great emperor to help, even if Yu Jian could be saved, it would not be able to reverse the situation that the Netherworld dynasty was about to be conquered. Forget it, there's no time to think so much. With a slightly cold imperial power, Chu Qingyu was about to set off and kill her way into the encirclement. But when she took a light step and was about to head towards the wall of the Netherworld dynasty, she was stopped. Wait, wife, I may have a better way. Nai-chan smiled and stopped him. What way? Although she stopped temporarily, Chu Qingyu was still a little puzzled. After all, facing the blood-red army like a tide, even she could not completely defeat it. I have learned from the saint about your past relationship with this Netherworld princess. Don't worry, since she has helped you before, not only the Netherworld princess, I will try my best to save the entire Netherworld dynasty. I just happen to have an ancient secret method that can concentrate the sword's will, and you just need to integrate your understanding of the sword into it. Nai-chan answered slowly. The terrifying thing about Kai Tai sword is that it can absorb the sword's will and turn it into an extremely powerful blow. But with the sword intent that he has comprehended so far, it is difficult to use the Kai Tai sword to exert a powerful force that can sweep away everything. However, if the Empress is added, the situation will be different. An extremely mysterious aura rises from Nai-chan. This aura seems to come from the ancient times, condensed in the sword intent. The phantom of the 10,000 sword domain slowly emerges, and Nai Chen's understanding of the sword is also integrated into this mysterious aura. It is like a sleeping tiger, hiding and not firing. But when it wakes up, the mountains and forests will tremble. The breath that seemed to be constantly brewing surprised Chu Qingyu. She had seen great emperors who had mastered the sword art to the extreme in Lanchuan continent for many years. But such an ancient and mysterious sword intent was something she had never heard of. Ancient secret method? What kind of ancient secret method is it? Chu Qingyu couldn't help but be curious. And the strange clothes called bikini, how could Nai Chen always find some weird things? Chu Qingyu could clearly sense the extraordinary breath, and she also followed Nai Chen's words and integrated her understanding of the sword art into it. Chu Qingyu had countless bamboo swords in her hands, but only the bamboo sword with a faint ink mark was the strongest sword she had always held. Not only a weapon, but even her Dharma image as an emperor was also a bamboo sword virtual image. Chu Qingyu's understanding of the sword art far exceeded that of other emperors, and she had her own unique understanding. The great emperor's sword can cut all living things and scare the world. This sword is the sword way, and it is also the great power to sweep away everything it passes through. All things condense, and the sword breaks them. The world is vast, and the sword can be cut. As a great emperor, as long as he holds the sword in his hand, all things must retreat and avoid, and the world must change color when hearing it. As Chu Qingyu's cold air becomes colder, her unique sword way is also integrated into the sword, meaning that Nai Chen has comprehended.